Alright, I like Hearts of Iron 4, but as a Dutchman that likes alternative history, I had to make a video criticizing the Untitled DLC. The alternative history path for Belgium is just awful. Instead of fiction based off real history, it's just fiction. Of course, you can't make a historically accurate alt history path, because, well, it didn't happen. But what you can do is make a somewhat realistic focus tree based off historical precedent, based off political parties and movements or individuals that did exist, and look at what they wanted to achieve. I'm of course talking about the fascist paths where Leon Degrelle, a French-speaking Belgian nationalist, becomes the leader of Belgium and has to choose a government where he is faced with the difficult choice between choosing his own political party of which he is the leader, or a Flemish separatist party whose primary goals are Flemish independence and removing all things French from Flanders. If Degrelle chooses the Rexist party, he stays the leader of Belgium. Makes sense, it's his party after all. And if he chooses the VNV, the Flemish National Union, he also stays in power. The Degrelle government then changes the name of the country to Flanders. The Walloons presumably accept it and aren't worried at all, because you don't get any negative modifiers. Then, after over a century of dominance and with all of the elites being French-speaking, French is marginalized and replaced by Dutch as the official language of the country, while being led by a French-speaking Belgian nationalist. Again, no negative stability and or political power modifier, despite this radical shift. One of the other plans of the VNV was uniting Flanders with the Netherlands. There's a shared history, language and culture between the two regions, so the Flemish and Dutch can be considered the same people. In the next focus you get war goals on the Netherlands and, for some reason, Luxembourg. Luxembourg was in a personal union with the Netherlands for a short time, 100 years prior, so perhaps that's why the Degrelle government wants to conquer them. The focus after that is called Duitsland. This was a concept for a union between Flanders and the Netherlands, not all of Belgium but strictly Flanders. But surprisingly, Paradox got this correct in the image for the focus. It doesn't fit the state of affairs, but it fits the name of the focus. So after incorporating the Netherlands and Luxembourg, the Walloons went from being 40% of the population and a well-established ruling class to being 20% of the population and their language pushed to the margins in less than a year. It somehow gets worse after this when the anti-French, Flemish separatist and Dutch unification party does a complete 180, forgets about their ideals of self-determination and tries to annex half of France. I hate everything about this. In so many focus trees you can choose the leader of a country through events, often when there are only minor ideological differences between the leaders. But with a country where the two main fascist parties had irreconcilable differences, where they couldn't even agree on the continued existence of the country, you don't get a choice. You get a Frenchman that happily leads the party of people who hate him. Paradox justifies all of this by saying Rex and VNV had an agreement to work together in the 1936 elections for a federalized Belgium state, which is true, but it was a weak pragmatic agreement that would have definitely collapsed if they had to rule Belgium together. What Paradox should have done is make 3 separate paths, one for each fascist movement in pre-war Belgium. Here's my proposal. The Rex path, where Belgium is significantly strengthened with a lot of combat bonuses, but they become a puppet of Germany. Degrelle still gets appointed by the king as it is now. Then during the war, Germany grants much of northern France to Belgium, which gets cores in those provinces, similar to the Bulgarian occupation of Yugoslavia and Greece. This is based on the historic collaboration of Rex and Degrelle with Germany during World War II, where they gave up all autonomy and heavily collaborated, as opposed to the Flemish National Union, the VNV, that tried to push back against German overreach, especially after the Germans banned Greater Netherlands propaganda and hinted at Flemish annexation into the Reich. The Germans gradually gave more power to more eager Flemish collaborators. For the VNV path, Degrelle does not get appointed by the king and definitely doesn't become the leader of VNV as it is now. Instead, if the VNV path is chosen, the Rexist party switches to non-aligned to split up the two parties. Then you can hire a fascist demagogue or increase fascism via decisions. If fascism reaches more than 40%, you can coup the country. With less than 40%, the coup fails and the civil war breaks out. You can choose the somewhat moderate de Klerk or the radical Tollenaren to lead the country. Tollenaren historically actually fought and died on the Eastern Front. After the coup or civil war, Flanders releases Wallonia as an integrated puppet. The goal of most VNV members was forming the Greater Netherlands or Duitsland, so through a focus you can demand the annexation of the Netherlands, and if they refuse you get a war goal. After the annexation, Flanders is renamed Duitsland, but with a historic Dutch flag instead of the ugly flag you get now. The Dutch East Indies stays the Dutch East Indies without a change of leadership, but the Belgian Congo is renamed Dutch Congo, and their mostly francophone government is changed for a Dutch-led government. The third fascist path is the Burgundian path, led by Joris van Severen of the Verdinasso organization. Verdinasso wasn't a political party but a political movement. At first they were against Belgium and favored a union of all Dutch-speaking people, including the Afrikaners of South Africa, but later they wanted to include Wallonia and Luxembourg because of the shared Burgundian heritage. The king appoints Joris van Severen as leader and Degrelle becomes an advisor. You get a temporary negative stability modifier because of protests by the Walloons. Through a focus, French and Dutch gain equal status in Belgium, removing the language barrier and national spirit. The current Burgundian focus makes no sense, but it would make sense under the Verdinasso government. You get war goals on the Netherlands and Luxembourg. After the annexation, the name changes to Burgundy and you gain cores on all historic Burgundian lands in France, the Netherlands and Luxembourg, but also on the areas in South Africa inhabited by Afrikaners. Like the Phalangist path of Poland, Burgundy becomes neither a puppet of Germany nor an ally, but instead leads its own independent faction that tries to ally minor fascist powers in Europe.